And welcome aboard the Tabletop Express. My name is Chris Barrows. In just a moment, I'm going to bring in our guest here tonight for Creators Corner, where we have, and I am so excited for this one. I had a chance to see them at PAX Unplugged, and it was a real joy and got to put this together. Welcome to Tabletop Express, Liz Davidson. Oh, I got you muted. That's on me. I got you. There we go. Hello again.
See, you just wanted to look at me. You don't actually hear me talk.
No. I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm thrilled to have you here. We are here very much, and it looks like Brian is in the chat, by the way. Good to see you, Brian. We are here to talk to you a little bit about some of the things you've been up to. One of the things I promise everyone who tunes in will hear about tonight is what you saw at the beginning, and that is this Queen of Spies, which you are one of the designers of. And let's just kind of get right into this. This is your first design, if I'm not mistaken.
It's my first one that's going to make it to publication. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued because a lot of people know you because of Beyond Solitaire. You've been out in the space. I know you're fairly well connected in the space in terms of just the circles of people who are having, conversations about what's happening in board games. But how did you go from all of that to the idea of I'm going to get a game published and I'm going to create this game, Queen of Spies, with someone who I know a lot of people are big fans of. Admittedly, I myself am, but David Thompson.
So it's kind of a long story. What's funny is I really never thought I was going to design a game. In fact, up until right before David and I started our first design night, which is I was insisting that I was never going to design a game. I was convinced that was just not going to be a thing. That I was just going to be a critic forever. And then David and I were already friends. I'd interviewed him about Pavlov's House, and I saw him online at 4 a.m. one time, and I was like, "Are you up?" And he was, "Are you up?" And we became early morning friends. So we already got along. And we started talking about cool topics for historical games, and we both got really excited about Night Witches. And we just kind of egged each other on until we actually started making a game. This is not a night for Night Witches. I'll hopefully be talking about it later this year. But that's our first design. Queen of Spies is actually our second design. So we had so much fun the first time around that we did it again. And he and I actually have a couple of other designs in the pipeline and a whole list of other things that we want to research. So that I feel like when you decide that you're going to co-design with somebody, you have to understand that you're taking a risk with your friendship, because it's sort of like agreeing to do a group project with somebody in class or something, right? You have to be sure that the other person is going to work in a way that makes both of you feel respected and it's going somewhere. But David is a consummate design partner. He is great. He, as a more experienced designer, could have certainly done something like not give me enough space in our creative work, but that's never been the case. It's really fun to make games with him because it's 50-50 him and me, and it gets very quickly where you can't look at the game and figure out who came up with what. And I really like that, because whenever we work together, it's like a fun chemistry experiment where a game will come out.
I'm intrigued though, because you talk about the history. Obviously that is a passion point for both of you, but why in particular with Queen of Spies did this kind of resonate as something that goes from that story, that piece of history, to a board game, and for that matter, not just a board game, but a solo focused board game? Because obviously solo games pretty popular these days, right? But they are more popular, I feel like, and growing in that popularity, which means I feel like you also have certain expectations. People really want something a little bit different. And it feels like, from what I've seen with some of the conversation around this, that has hit here. So I'm really intrigued kind of how that came about from this story to a solo story-driven game.
So for Christmas 2023, my boyfriend got me a book. He got me Women in Intelligence by Helen Fry. And I started reading it right around New Year's, and I came across all these cool bits about like pigeons being used as like a way to communicate information, and like she wrote a lot about how many of like a large percentage of people in spy networks in World War I and World War II are women, and there's sort of like an underappreciated part of intelligence and resistance movements in that era. um she wrote all this kind of interesting stuff about infiltrating office buildings and helping with prisoner of war rescue missions. So these are all things that made it into Queen of Spies. Because I was just so fascinated. Honestly, my first obsession was the pigeons. I wanted to understand how pigeons work, because you think about messages as going two directions, and it was like, well, how do you get the pigeon to go from one place to the other? The answer is you don't. The pigeon knows how to go home, but you have to carry it to the place where it will get the intelligence, and then the other person lets it go and it comes back. And so I never knew that. And, I got really obsessed with like, okay, so how do spy pigeons work? And I just sort of carried David along with my crazy thoughts. And then we ended up deciding to make a game out of it. So,
so you find yourself, you can easily end up going down like one of those rabbit holes that turns into a part of a design in this particular case.
Yeah, actually, David and I are currently both researching different topics that we might want to make a game about. And we're going to like propose games to each other. We're going to make both. It's just a matter of like which one we want to do first. But we keep like a running list of historical topics that we have a strong interest in. And then we'll go through like a research or like reading phase, which is super fun, because you get to get really into something, get super nerdy about it. And then we'll kind of start meeting and talk, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so we'll figure out where we think the game is, and then we'll start meeting and like actually trying to design the game. And we talk a lot with each other about like how we want players to feel while they're playing. So like the very first note for this one, for Queen of Spies, for Night Witches, it's cold and you don't really know what you're flying over. And you're very alone. For Queen of Spies, it's you have to get a lot done in a really short period of time, and there's extreme pressure. And also you could get arrested. And so that was like kind of the vibe that we were going for, is like the danger of trying to run a resistance movement. And so Queen of Spies, we wanted it to be solo, partially because we're both just solo gamers, and I'm not working entirely on solo games right now. We could talk about that later if you want. I'm a woman of many talents, maybe not talents, inclinations. But the solo community is my home community. I like to make solo games. I want people to have interesting solo experiences. And so, Queen of Spies emerged from us kind of reading all those cool things about like La Dame Blanche and Alice Dubois. There's a book about her called Queen of Spies. And so that's how the game got its name, because she was like a resistance movement leader. It's a code name for it's Louise de, my pronunciation's bad because I'm American, Bettany. But it was very just interesting to learn about her and what she was doing. And so we named the game kind of in her honor.
No, and again, it's, for me, I'm not surprised when I hear your name and I hear solo. So it's very cool to hear you talk about the fact that it's not going to just be solo and kind of the lineup of games in your mind, but this one obviously being solo. One of the things that stood out to me when I saw this on GameFound in particular is it says a solo story-driven board game, right? And so intriguing to me when I see story-driven. It means to, when I see that, sometimes I think, oh, that means there's some kind of interesting narrative that might hook me as I'm playing, whether it is given to me or whether it's created in the gameplay. Where does that kind of, how did that kind of come together to create the story driven part with this particular piece? Because, you go into, say, Witches as an example, which I know some of the folks involved with this were also involved with. And I'm not saying there's not a story, because there's story there, right? And you're interested in, but story driven is a very specific term when I see it. And so it does kind of make me think about things.
Yeah. Story driven is actually not the term I chose. That's the term that Salt and Pepper chose. I think that, however, you're touching on what I'm the most proud of about Queen of Spies, which I think that David and I did a very good job of creating emergent narrative from the game. So it has very, very little text. There is a little bit of flavor text at the beginning and the end. and then the scoring to kind of give you some flavor. But what you're doing is much more obvious from just the cards themselves. Like you're going to locations, you understand from the locations what it is you're doing. The way that you're handling your assignments is just drawing tokens from a bag. But some of the things that go in the bag are like troop tokens, so you can get arrested, or there's alert, which increases the likelihood that troops will be added to the bag further. So like all the things that happen to you in the game are mechanically driven, but it creates a story to the point where like David and I became convinced that certain operatives in the game were better than others while we were playtesting, even though it's truly just pulling from a bag. and so Rianne is like, we always recruit her even if we don't have her, because she's just like, she kicks ass, like she just passes every check. I don't know. And then Gideon for some reason would just fail everything, and so we would just be, God damn it, Gideon, throughout several playtests, to the point where if you draw him when we're playing, we're like, oh no, God damn it, Gideon. And so like this idea of this kind of feeling that the game has a personality and that they're like quirks, like even if it's just perception, to me tells me the game's doing what it needs to do. Because you could say, I'm putting the card on the card and I'm drawing some tokens about the card, but it doesn't feel like that when you're playing it. And to me, like I like that the story kind of pops out. It's a little different every time.
I appreciate your explanation of that too, because I one, it's candid and real, and obviously I love that, but I love when a game can do that, when the gameplay itself, and as you're doing, tells that story. And Brian actually asking a question here, how do Liz and David balance historical accuracy with mechanisms and fun? You talked a little bit about making sure there's gameplay in the history, but how do you try to strike a balance? Because obviously sometimes it's not perfect, and you've got to kind of figure out what that balance is going to end up being.
Yeah, it depends per game, but so some of David's other historical games are extremely granular to the point where there's pictures of people who were there. So Soldiers and Postmen's Uniforms even has like a child in it, and it's tragic and very interesting because it's so true to reality. So for Night Witches, we ended up having to depart from reality for a number of reasons, one of which is that they flew extremely repetitive missions all night, and that's not fun.
Yep.
So basically we kind of did what we wanted within reason and had a historical consultant. So that game will come with an essay about what's real and what's not in the game. With Queen of Spies, what we chose to do was just make it very clear. Like we made up a fake Belgian town so that we weren't actually trying to place the network anywhere in particular. And we made it very clear the game is inspired by history, but is not meant to exactly replicate history. And so we try to be really clear about what it is that we're trying to do. I will say these stories in the game. So the game is divided into stories, each of which has chapters. So like the first chapter is about, as I mentioned, I got obsessed with pigeons. You have to acquire, train, and then send pigeons out to get intelligence. And you score based on like how many trained pigeons bring something good back. But you have to draw from the bag to see how good the intelligence is. So if you've got a messy draw bag at the end of the scenario, you have a lower chance of getting good intelligence, which, I mean, it's mean, but I think that's funny. The second scenario, you immediately start with prisoners of war in the jail that you have to save, and there's a huge pressure to do it because there's a lot of like stories about these resistance movements, like doing big jailbreaks and stuff like that. So we went with it. And then the third one, you actually start with like a skeleton crew. You don't start with your full operative set, and you have to recruit up people who work in an office to like infiltrate the building. And so all of those things are based on actual accounts we read, but they're kind of creative interpretations of that so that it makes it a fun board game with enough like branching pathways and like ways to, work with the game system instead of you have to follow this one path in order to like do this one spy thing, because that's a novel. That's not a game.
Right. And it is a great point, because when it comes down to it, history is interesting, but it doesn't necessarily always not everything translates to a fun game experience. So you're finding the way to strike that, and the inspiration, obviously. I love to hear Dan, by the way, putting out history major from Philly that loves board games. You can say it's interview hitting all the buttons. Dan, always good to see you.
I just corrected in the chat. I am not from Philly. I'm from Texas, but I just love the Flyers. So I saw that documentary about them and like what a bunch of wild animals they were in like the 70s. And I was just like, this is amazing. I like these guys. The Street Bullies, is that what it was? That was a great. I just really like the attitude, and I'm obsessed with Gritty. Like I have a big stuffed Gritty in my office, and while I was at PAX Unplugged, I went to a Flyers game, and that's where I got the hoodie because I just had to go see Gritty be Gritty. It was incredible. I was very happy.
So you had a good. So you had a. Let's talk a little bit before we get into the game because you were at PAX Unplugged. What was your PAX Unplugged experience like? We love PAX Unplugged here on the Tabletop Express. It's not a joke when I say it makes up like a quarter of our content throughout the year. I'm very blunt about it because with review copies, games we found there, games we discovered there, it is like the event of the year for us, and it translates into so many conversations. So, this one in many ways originates because I was thinking about I got to make sure I talk to Liz at some point. So, what stood out for you at PAX Unplugged? What was your experience like?
Oh, PAX Unplugged is always good. So PAX Unplugged is the first convention that I really grew to love. Like even in my early YouTube days when I was like scrounging for money to go to a con, like PAX Unplugged was the con of choice for me for years. And it's because it's a con where you can see a lot of people and you can like see a lot of new releases and there's some really good booths. So it's kind of a selling show, but it's also very much a gaming show. The open play area is excellent. The game library is excellent. Once you hook in with other media people, like I wouldn't call them after parties. You just kind of know where people hang out and you know how to show up and play games. It's like once you kind of crack that, it's excellent. So, it's I've always had a good time at PAX. This time, I've learned to enjoy booth work as well. So now that I work for a game company, I really like the process of like knowing how to set up the booth. It's like watching a city come up because everybody else's booths are all coming up. And so it's just this horrible, barren warehouse. It's all echoey and terrible. And then suddenly life appears and you all like put the floor down and everybody's got their cool little dividers and little graphics coming up, and before you know it, you have this entire like mini civilization that will exist for a weekend. And then the second everybody leaves at the end of the exhibit hours on the last day, everybody just tears everything down. It's like this incredible like aggressive rip down moment, and then by the evening it's barren again. And it's just such a crazy process to witness. So I get added pleasure out of it now.
That process is something, and I've never seen the teardown. I've seen the beginnings of the setup because I've been able to help out with a booth before, but I've never seen the teardown. So sounds fascinating. Which is to bring up the actual page that is Game Found, and I wanted to give everyone a look at the game, so we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So give me just one sec here.
I was actually saying this is the first time I watched this trailer.
It's my second time I watched it earlier today. It's kind of cool that this is your first time seeing it. We're seeing it like a live reveal.
super cute.
I love it. I love the visual of the game. I love the graphics of the game. This one, just so everyone knows, it's on GameFound right now. Let me first hit people with the brass tacks here. It's on there now. It $23, but there are group packages I know on there, so you can save some money. If you're looking at this game and after this video you're interested, definitely go check that out. So let's talk about this game though, because this is a game, as you mentioned, a solo game. I want to first ask you about these visuals, these arts. I mean, it's got such a cool vibe to it. It feels right, but I'm intrigued how you come through that process of in working with the publishers, and kind of realizing what the overall vision is going to be in terms of on the table. And here, to me, I mean, I personally think it looks great, but intrigued how you get there.
I'm super happy with how this game looks. So the first way that you get there is that you work with Salt and Pepper because they work with Meeple Foundry. So Meeple Foundry is like the organization that does a lot of graphic design for them as a publisher, and they did the graphic design for Queen of Spies. I am super happy with how it came out and very appreciative. But they kind of like a comic book style. And so it feels very natural that this would be like the kind of aesthetic that they picked up for Queen of Spies. One thing I'm also going to shout out is that our illustrator, Carlos Oreta, is phenomenal. That dude is fast. He makes really, really great images, and they're really thoughtful. Like, one thing I really like, and you can't totally see it here, but each of the operatives has like an untrained side and a trained side. And what's really cool is I wrote the art brief, but it was literally just like some suggestions in an Excel sheet of like, oh, you should have this person, I don't know, taking notes, and the next one she's like stealing a document or something like that. And he made it come to life. And so when you look at the untrained side of each of the operatives, they're doing something sort of normal. Like, actually, you can kind of see the bottom of this. Gideon, God damn it, Gideon is being a waiter. Marguerite's like doing some switchboard stuff. But then when you train them, you flip them over, and they look like much more badass. And they're doing something really cool. And I find that really neat that he really like kind of took our idea for what that might look like and then turned it into something that really looks natural and alive and is really good fun. So I'm just super grateful to that team because, David and I, we can make rudimentary prototypes that make sense. But the fact is that you need good graphics and you need a good illustrator to make the game fully come to life and come together and give people the visual cues that they need. I think it's a really underestimated thing. Really, really good graphic design that kind of guides your eye where it needs to go and helps you remember what you're supposed to do. All of those things are, you almost don't notice them because they can be done so masterfully, but it is really incredible to work with somebody who knows what they're doing in that area.
Is it something too that you get a greater appreciation for when you design and work on a game as compared to, because I can sit here and say I've looked at a game, I've got to review a game before. I count my blessings that I've been able to do that. But even though I feel like I appreciate it, I don't feel like I could possibly appreciate it as much as you, who's worked hand in hand to write a visual brief and then see something come to life. I don't think that's plausible.
I mean, I've always appreciated good graphic design, but actually talking through the process with somebody who is way better at it than you is so awesome because they see so much that you don't see. I also enjoy this at work. And, basically every game project I work on, including talking to somebody with the map for Fox's Lions, which is one of my ongoing projects. Having a conversation with somebody who knows how to make a good map, somebody who knows how to use symbols and graphics to communicate something. It kind of makes me think of, my mother is a writer. My parents both are. And my mom will say, the thing about writing is that everybody thinks they can do it because everybody can kind of write something.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that they know how to do it at a professional level. And I kind of feel like with art, like, we kind of consume it all the time. You see it all the time. You feel like you know a thing or two, but then you encounter somebody who actually knows what they're doing and you're like, damn.
Yeah, and again, it's someone who's helping your vision come to life. So
Yeah.
I can only, again, that's why I say I can only imagine. I can do only so much. I can appreciate, I can respect. It's a big reason that we try to have illustrators and artists on here to talk to
Yes.
them, but at the same time, it's a completely different thing, I imagine.
Yeah. But it takes a village to make a game, you know.
Oh yeah, it's there's so many people behind it. What was the biggest surprise for you in this creation process to launch between the games you've been involved with, obviously including this game, Queen of Spies?
The biggest surprise?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like one thing it's not a surprise. Basically, one thing that keeps surprises from happening is that Gonzalo from Salt and Pepper is so communicative. Maybe that itself is a surprise. But he is fantastic about being in touch and like has really made David and me part of this process at every step. And so, you know, that part is really delightful. Although, okay, I will tell you one thing that surprised me is the current stretch goal. I did not expect to end up on one of the game's cards. I got the email about it.
I was gonna get to this. Let's show everybody what we're talking about too, because I know it's on here.
Okay, so like I think it's so sweet that they did this, but I'm also like a little bit like flustered about it. Does that make sense? Like, and because I wouldn't call myself shy. Like I'm not a shy person. I have a YouTube channel. I interview people. I put myself out there all the time. But something about doing the design stuff, I turn into like a big baby. Like and you know, it was really funny to open an email and I was like, I know who that's me. And then it was
There you are. You're right there. You're able to put and this stretch goal is almost there. So it's looking pretty good that you are in the game now. So it's pretty neat.
I would never ask to be in a game just because I feel like there's something about it that it's not something that I would ask. But I really like, I think it's so sweet that they did that and then surprised me with it. That was just like a really cool thing. And again, I think it comes from when you're really communicating with the team throughout the whole process, you know, you think to do stuff like that for each other.
Yeah. And what intrigues me, so as you talk through this game, you have, as you already mentioned, the 3 unique scenarios, right?
Yeah.
How do you come to like, we're going to do 3, we're going to do 4? Like, what is the breakdown of what's enough? Because you talked about balance earlier, but
Yeah.
at a certain point you have to decide, do we need more? Is this enough game to put out there that someone's going to purchase it and then put it on their table? Because you have to make a decision at some point to also stop and say, no, that is good. Like, we have completed a package that is worth investing in for people.
I think 3 is just a good number, but so in this case, I think that especially for this price point and this box size, you're getting a lot of game for that price. So the way that David and I see it though is that we kind of think about, so the reality of buying games, this is true for me too, I'm a sinner, is that, you know, a lot of games that you buy represent opportunity more than the reality. Or you'll get some huge game and you bring it to the table like 3 times. And so we wanted to give people something that was meaty enough to be worth spending a lot of time with, but also something that didn't feel like I will never finish this. Because I don't know about y'all, but like I get very overwhelmed when there are games that have like too many expansions, too many options, too many modules. I will eventually kind of quit engaging with games that ask too much of me in that regard. So if I back something on Kickstarter and the box comes and it's like looks like it's a piece of furniture in there, I'm actually kind of turned off because it's too much. Like I'm never gonna play all that. And so David and I really think a lot about making sure that we're giving a good bang for the buck, but also not overwhelming our players. Like we want you to actually be able to experience the game, but then it's also replayable because you draw a random hand of operatives every game. So you don't actually know like what skill layout you're going to have or which exact operatives you're going to have. So you start each game a little differently, Each of the scenarios has different pathways to success that you could choose. So even if you replay it, you don't have to do the same thing twice. In fact, there are several options. And then the other thing is, frankly, the game is very hard. It's a solo game. Solo gamers tend to like it tough. At least I do. And so this is not an easy game. Like, this game kicks my butt too, periodically, even though I've played it a bunch of times and kind of know where some of the danger spots are. It is a hard game. And so we wanted to make something that was worth engaging with and then re-engaging with and thinking about. But we also didn't want to be at a place where we were wearing out our welcome. Because I like a game that doesn't do that to me.
And I love what you mentioned, because you mentioned something that I was going to ask you about, which is the fact, yes, that it's free scenarios, but there's a lot of different ways to get there. So there's also that challenge of maybe I'll try it a different way. There's another way I can get there. So when I play it again, I might not play it the exact same way. Or said by what you're saying, I may not be able to play it the exact same way, because with that initial hand I'm given, I have to do something different. And therein lies replayability by that metric.
Yeah. Like, depending on how many operatives have stealth, even at the beginning, really changes how likely it is you're going to add troops to the bag, and then how likely it is you're going to have a jail problem. And so, you just don't know exactly how everything's going to work out. And, for me, that feels real too. Like, you don't know exactly who you're going to have to work with if you're trying to put together a resistance move. This is whoever wants to resist. The other thing is that you could do something like try to recruit more operatives. But the problem is that if you do that, you might have too many people in your hand and end up wasting time, precious time, because you're managing people who aren't actually doing anything for you.
Yeah, because at the heart of it, you've got these free core pieces, which I by the way, I do appreciate this on any crowdfunding where it's, here's a quick how to play, but it's straightforward and applied here. It's the assign the operatives, remove time, then resolve your assignments.
Yeah.
And then you resolve the interrogations. And so the steps are straightforward, but it doesn't mean that the decisions are easy. It doesn't, and it doesn't mean that, again, to your point, it's not an easy game, but the steps are pretty clear. So from a pick it up and learn it perspective, how do you describe kind of where this falls on a weight scale for you as someone who's, I'm intrigued by this because you have been invested in solo games and you are someone who people know likes their solo games.
So I would consider this a light game, but one that kind of has little complexities that emerge. So there are two things to kind of know as you learn this one. One is that I think the first time you play it, the rhythm feels like funny, like a little counterintuitive, because learning how to remove those time tokens and just accept that your operatives are going to get out of sync with each other, that's part of the game. But I think that in games, like, our desire for control and to game things out is really strong. And so this game is like doing kind of a delicate balance of, there are things that are out of your control, and then there are also things that you can plan for. And like, learning to work with what you're getting is like harder than the actual rules, if that makes sense. The other thing for this game is that you just have to read the cards. So some of the game's complexities emerge from results in the cards. So success and failure can look different depending on which location you send operatives to and which assignment they're trying to complete. So in some cases, if they don't succeed, there's not really a penalty. They just kind of leave progress on there and they can go keep working at it. But sometimes if you're doing something really high stakes, then the consequences of not passing all the skill checks during that assignment are really dire. Because you can't be like, yeah, I'm going to go break into this house, but if I mess up, I made progress, I'll just go finish breaking it later. Like, that's not how that works. So, no. Basically it's a game where you have to read the cards, but the core system is actually dead simple.
But yeah. That, and to your point, like you said earlier, there's not a ton of reading. So there's information on the card, but it's not overwhelming. It's not,
and it's also not story. It's right. You passed. Okay. So now you're going to add one alert to the bag, and you're also going to get this reward. Like, because you might have still drawn some attention to yourself. Or it'll say something like, oh, failure. Well, guess what? You lose all the progress on here, and you're going to add some troops to the bag. And that would represent you effed up. And now the cops are after you. And so there's text, but it's telling you what to do in the game, but it's pretty clear what has happened narratively as a result of your success or failure.
It's interesting though, to that point, it's a good example of how, and look, there are some games that I think the long text is worth it, and there are narrative stories that need a lot, but sometimes you don't need a slog of paragraphs to make a game narrative or interesting. You just need to allow a game to breathe a little bit is kind of how I think about it. And that that's my take, at least, because there's some games I played that there's just way too many words and I get like lost in the words and I just don't want to play anymore.
I don't mind some reading in my games, but in this case, so when we talked about like studying the history and thinking about like where's the game, one thing that David and I try to keep to when we are designing is that every mechanism, everything that you can do in the game has a reason that is grounded in the theme. So there is nothing in here that has nothing to do with the storyline or with the kinds of things we wanted you to experience related to resistance movements in World War One. Everything here is thematically tied to something real. And so I think that makes it easier to remember rules personally. Like I like games that are very thematic because it helps me understand what to do and it makes the game feel more intuitive. But also, it makes it easier to teach and explain to other people when I'm the one who's like doing that.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued in this process when I've talked to a lot of people who've designed games on Creators Corner. Playtesting has been a different process for everyone. How did you go through the process of running the playtest? It's a solo game. You can obviously playtest yourself in a solo game experience, but obviously you want to get different perspectives. So what is that process? Because obviously everyone does it a little bit different, I've learned.
Yeah. So there are like a couple different ways that David and I test. So the first is obviously we play it a lot. One thing that I think is very funny about Queen of Spies is that you could probably say that it's really good alone together, because even though it's a single player game, it was designed by David and me playing it together and just making all the decisions together. So that's possible. But we've played it a bunch of times, hundreds of times. Then of course you show it at conventions and you kind of see how people are responding to it. So, we talked about PAX EU, but the conventions where I'm really like getting my work done are SD HisCon in the fall, so that's in San Diego, and then Circle DC in the spring, and that's in Washington DC. And those are small, like under 200 person, like historical game conventions. And David and I show our work there, and we kind of get responses to more complete work at those. And so that's really an important part of the wheel of my year, like creatively. And then the other thing that we do when we want to have the blind play testing going on is we just have a Discord. We put out an all call, people sign up, and then we send information to the people who agreed to test. So like you're gonna get like a TTS mod, the rules, usually a Google form. So David and I tend to want data when we're playtesting. So we kind of want to know, what was your score? Did you die? Did you, like we're trying to gauge like how hard is the game and what do we need to calibrate, in addition to just what are general perceptions of the game. And so we need lots of play tests. Like the volume is important because we're trying to get a sense of like the spread of how people are doing. And it helps us kind of key in on the right values for things in the game. Like what's the max number of points? How many points should a person be earning? Is this too hard? Do we need to give... do we need more time? Do we need to, lower some of the difficulty thresholds? So like for us, usually by the time we're playtesting with larger audiences, we pretty much know what we want the game to do. But we want to know, are people able to understand our rules? Are there like weird hangups? And then what are the scores looking like? So that we can kind of go from there.
It's interesting to hear you talk about the data part of it too, because so often when I've talked to people about this, they're talking very much about the fact that they want to get the perspectives on what does the gameplay feel like, almost these emotive data points. But you're talking about something that I feel like is maybe the first time, or at least it's been a while, but it really is how are you actually doing at the game? Is this game hard? Is this game too easy? Because to that point, you did discuss that you don't want it to be easy. Solo gamers do
Yeah.
have an expectation of, I shouldn't be able to win this every time, right?
Right.
Because that's not fun in solo gaming if you just win every time.
No. Oh, I'm really good at the mind solo, but there's another aspect of testing I've just been thinking about because it's what I'm doing at work right now. So one thing Leader does that I really like is we do what's called usability testing. I had never seen this in action until this job and the late stages of working on Oath solo. So what we do, and this is like kind of odd, but I will never stop doing it now. I want to start doing it for my own personal projects, is we get a volunteer to come on a video call with us. They pull up the rule book and share their screen, and then we turn our cameras off. They can leave theirs on, and they literally like read the rules to us and talk about what they are understanding as they read. So you find somebody who's never read your rules before and have them literally read those rules in front of you. They don't have to read every word for word, but they can. And they have to tell you when they are feeling confused. And then instead of just giving them an answer right away, you have to learn to say, like, well, what do you think it means based on what you know so far? And see what they say. And it is extremely interesting because it teaches you a lot about where the weird crap in your rules are. Like, it's got to go. And like what needs to be rearranged, what pieces of information need to come up earlier because people are kind of instinctively looking for them, but you didn't know that. There's a lot of ways to test a game if you put a lot into it, but like I'm now a huge believer in like watching people read the rules because it seems kind of creepy and odd, but it's actually crucial. I learned so much about writing a good rule book and seeing like where issues were from watching that process.
It's interesting because I used to do that with websites, and I had to watch people click through a website and figure out that, oh, it's not innovative enough that they actually, it's not intuitive enough that they know what that means. But rulebooks can be obviously the bane of someone's existence, or they can be the lifesaver, right? And there's a reason a lot of people look up how to play a game and use the search how to play insert name of game. And very often it's because the rule book isn't doing its job. Or they're lazy, which I don't blame anyone, because sometimes I just do that for that same reason. But
also like everybody has a different learning style. So like offering information in multiple formats is just an inherent good. But you want to make sure that for the person who's making the video, even for somebody who wants to watch a video, right, the information that you give off needs to be as clear as possible. And so
well, and that's a great point too, because they also may reference that while playing, whether you watch the video or not, you still may reference the book, and you better be able to find the answer. If I can't find the answer in the rule book, there's a problem. Or if it's questionable and you're like, well, okay, I'm just gonna do this because it seems like it makes the most sense. Well, but I love that you talk about that usability. Before you go anywhere, one of the questions Brian asked earlier that I wanted to actually bring up was unrelated to Queen of Spies, but I think it's going to be really interesting to everybody, which is, I know, Liz, as a solo gamer, what is your favorite new to you solo experience?
I'm sorry, I'm just too jaded. No, I'm kidding. Right now, I have been interested in messing around with Unstoppable. It's made quite the splash. So this is not like a surprise game if you've been following solo chatter this year. But it's one of those card crafting games where you're adding things to card sleeves to increase the value of your cards, but also their enemies that you have to beat that are more difficult because of that crafting. It's just a really interesting thing to start to check out. I'm really looking forward to spending more time with that game because I just find it fascinating that Mystic Veil, I think that's the original card. It's the same designer too. It's like I thought it was cool, but I was like, this is neat, I guess. But like by now, like that system or like that way of playing with the cards has like fully matured.
Yeah.
And so now it's like come out in this like really fantastic game, and I really have enjoyed like seeing that too. It's like, oh wow, like this thing that I thought was kind of a gimmick early on is now like this very developed and like super interesting game mechanism that I am completely here for.
Yeah, the card crafting system is fascinating to me. I have a pickup from PAX Unplugged of runes from All Play Games as an example that has some of that going on. John Declare's involved with that one, I believe, as well. So it's an interesting system to see the least. Before you go anywhere, I want to make sure I bring the Game Found back up. So for everyone paying attention, Queen of Spies is on Game Pound right now, 27 days left, so there is time. But that said, if you are interested in this one and have any questions, make sure you drop them. Feel free to drop them in the comments during this time. But if not, Liz has graciously agreed to also hop over on our Discord and do an AMA. So I'm going to have that set up. So I'll have a link to the Discord and I'll share more information about when that's going to occur. But definitely check it out. All the details are here on the page. There are 3 different reward packages. So you've got the $23, which is going to be for 1 copy, a pack of 3, and then there's also a pack of 6 on here. So there's a few different ways that you're able to pick up a copy of your game, and if you've got a group, you're going to be able to grab a bunch and save yourself some money.
That 6-pack is apparently for stores, but hey, if you're a store, look at this deal. You could stock 6 whole copies.
Yeah, but the 3-pack though, I would say for anyone is going to be a great package if you're looking for, because that puts it, $60 for 3. It's $20 a pop. So
yeah, that's a deal. Also, supporting the campaign would mean a lot to me because you know who's following this campaign closer than anybody? My mom, and she gets very excited whenever there's a new video or interview or anything goes up, and it's like kind of cool actually, like it's really good to have supportive parents. My dad read my entire dissertation, which I really appreciated. Like that's love. That stuff was about Egyptian monks. My parents, like, but my mom especially, has been like watching this with like fascination, and it feels kind of neat to be able to have her able to actually see like a part of my life and career this way. Mm-hmm. Because you say, oh yeah, I go to work and I make games, like what does that mean to someone, but actually seeing kind of like a result of that coming out into the world has been like kind of cool, like for my family too.
And I mean, look, let's be frank on it. You're looking at the goal was met. So first and foremost, the goal was met, which is always worth celebrating, but continues to go up. You've got over 1,000 backers. This is far from over. And as we all know, in the crowdfunding world, those last 2 to 3 days can be chaotic with the amount that comes. So I can't wait to see what the final results of this ends up
Get
being.
ready to spend your Christmas money, everybody.
I do like that timing though, because for what it's worth, that does mean the holiday funds, if you're looking to spend, can go to a game that's a lot that's out during this period, because it is plenty of time. There's some that do shorter campaigns and some do longer campaigns. So that's another choice that gets made, obviously. And that might be out of your wheelhouse where that decision comes, but either way, I feel like, well, that stands out still as an opportunity. So,
actually, traditionally, this is apparently not a good time of the year to do a crowdfund. But the thing is, I'm still happy with how the campaign's going. 2, why wouldn't it be? Spend your Christmas money, not kidding. But 3, the other thing that's actually very cool about working with Salt and Pepper is that like we're reviewing final files now. This is getting submitted to the factory in like 2 weeks. So like before the campaign is even actually over, they'll have gauged the size of the print run and like placed an order at the factory, that means that the game is going to deliver a lot faster. So it's not like, oh wow, I backed this and I waited like 1 million years for it to show up. It's like, okay, well, it started printing and it's just a matter of time until it comes. And then the retail release will be around Gen Con. But if you back it, it'll actually show up like once it's done printing and it's going to the printer.
And they've got a process that obviously is effective at this point. There's a lot of Salt and Pepper games on my shelf. So
yeah, I was excited. Like when when they send out those like nice advanced prototypes for us and for content creators, um, it's a really nice prototype. It's like a real game, you know, like you get a prototype and it's kind of, I have no idea what I'm looking at here. No, it's like got the nice box, the wooden pieces, all this stuff is like already there. I was like delighted to get that prototype because like what a great prototype to get for your first, you know, previewing your own game for GameFound. So it already looked good. And then, you know, after edits and stuff, like we've been really combing through the cards to try to catch everything. So
before you go anywhere, where can people catch you next? Are you going to be down? I'm assuming you'll be in DC for are you, oh, I don't want to assume, but will you be in DC or any of these other cons in 2026 where people can catch you, say hello, maybe play a game with you?
yeah, so if you want to find me online, I'm just Beyond Solitaire literally everywhere. I'm very easy to find and I do answer messages and stuff. I'm pretty communicative, terminally online. And if you want to find me in person, I am going to be at Circle DC in April. I'm going to be at Gen Con in August. And I have every intention of going to SD in November and PAX Unplugged in. Did they announce the new dates? Is it December again?
It's back in December.
I'm kind of glad. Glad. Yeah. Although seeing the Philadelphia Marathoners run by at the Panera while waiting to go to the show was like pretty cool this time. So
I will the funniest thing for me that I will leave you with, and I don't know if you witnessed it, but in my hotel, I was watching the Marathoners. I watched them run by, but then I watched also their comments. I kind of heard their comments like, "Oh, look at all these games!" Like, so it was kind of funny to hear when it wasn't just a room full of gamers, and then be like, "Oh, what is this?" And then I mean, I talked to one or two of them, and they're like, "Oh no, it's a PAX," and they were genuinely interested. Like they were very nice. The ones I got a chance to talk to, but they were very focused on their run. So, most of them were. Understandably so. Most of them were not looking for a conversation, and I wasn't trying either. So, if I talked to them, they talked to me first. I will say that much. But well, Liz, I want to thank you. I want to also encourage everyone to just make sure that they follow all the great things Liz is up to. Queen of Spies is just one of the things you're going to see Liz's name on, and I know we've got a lot of great stuff from you to come. And I encourage people to follow Liz for Beyond Solitaire and all of the great things that Liz does with solo games and everything else. And Liz, just standout individual that if you have a chance to meet Liz, you'll know it. You are as real, and you look, it's not true for everyone in this world, but you're as real in person as you are here, and it stands out. So I'm grateful that you were willing to spend some time, even with the little power glitch there. And I want to thank, like I said, I got to thank T-Mobile for a hotspot here because I don't know what the heck happened, but really do appreciate you sticking through that. And
it's happened to me too, so it's fine.
Oh, it happens. It happens. That's the beauty and the scariness of live. For anyone, if you do have any questions for Liz after the fact, drop them in the comments here. As I mentioned, we're going to have an AMA on the Discord, so I'm going to drop the link to the Discord once I'll drop a link to the Discord in the description, and then we'll let people know when that's happening. And you can go ahead and ask Liz some questions about Queen of Spies and solo gaming and have some fun. So that'll be coming probably in the next few days after this wraps up. And yeah, Liz, anything you want to leave everybody with? I know you already told them where to find them, but anything you want to leave everybody with before we go?
If you like playing solo games, go do it. If you haven't tried it yet, go find something on your shelf that you like that has a solo mode and give it a shot. You might surprise yourself.
I love that message. It resonates for me as someone who only got into it in the past few years. With that, everyone, thank you. There is one more live stream on the Tabletop Express this month. That is going to be towards the end of the month. We're going to talk about all those games we played and find out what was on your table this month. That is our Call Aboard live call-in show. Be part of a show. That's what we do here on the Tabletop Express. And Call Aboard is always a blast. I want to thank Liz for being here. I hope to see some of you there. And then we'll definitely be tackling some great topics in 2026. We got plenty of reviews on the way as well, because PAX Unplugged, we've got some things to talk about. And with that, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. And with that, have a wonderful evening, everyone. And I will see you all very soon and hopefully back here in 2 weeks for Call Aboard. Have a great night.
Thanks for having me.